my son went to Northwestern. And before he went there, I went to the dean of the school. I said, hey, if he doesn't hear about Agile and test-driven development, all these things in his 4 years here, you've done him and his classmates a disservice.
Oof.
And they don't actually teach it yet.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Agile or BS. I'm your host, Peter Saddington, with my wonderful colleague, Bob Hartman from Agile for All. We love answering all of your Scrum and Agile-related questions. And today, we're going to cover one that comes up a lot in classes and with clients. It's this whole idea of bug fixing sprints. So the question simply is, are bug fixing sprints real Agile or BS? Bob, I'll hand it over to you first.
Well, Peter, I think it's obvious that they're BS, but I'd rather have you fix bugs than not fix them. So I suppose that that there's a usefulness for them on occasion, but I think they point out errors in the rest of your system. There's a quote, I think, from one of Mary and Tom Poppendick's books that said, you should always do QA at the end of a project, but if it routinely finds problems, your system is broken. And I think that's what you would see if you have bug fixing sprints, right? I mean, the system is broken. You shouldn't get to there. We should be trying to build quality in, test-driven development, all these other things. And the whole concept of bug fixing sprints is it's just ridiculous to me. But I have a funny story about this because I have a client that had to do a lot of bug fixing. They had an app that was in the App Store for iOS and Android, and their app wasn't working very well, and people were getting very upset. And they decided to just fix bugs for like 3 months. They literally just fixed bugs for like 9 or 12 sprints in a row or something. It was crazy. And they had a meeting where they had all of their salespeople in town for a big shindig. And they announced at that meeting that the next release of the app had 500 bug fixes. Oh. Yeah, it sounds terrible, right?
But it must feel good.
The salespeople gave them a standing ovation. How crazy is that, right? I mean, that's the world we live in. Sometimes it goes crazy. And I think that, like I said, I'd rather have people fix bugs than not fix them, but find a way to do it within your sprints. Find those bugs earlier would be the Agile way of doing it. Bug fixing sprints to me is complete BS, other than the fact that if you're really terrible at it, you got to do it.
Absolutely. I think there's a small nuance in there a little bit, which is the whole idea of having discipline to, when bugs are found, to also add them into the product backlog, have the product owner and the developers negotiate on it, right? And certainly add in those bug fixes as part of your sprints proper. And so that's one of the things that I think having bug fixing sprints is a symptom of a larger problem, that we're not addressing these bugs or these issues as they emerge during the current sprints. And we're essentially doing very kind of traditional thinking kind of methodology. We just wait till the end. The problem is when you're integrating everything and you have these technical debt and all this bugs, growing in mass, you end up entirely crashing your entire system, operational downtime, production issues, right? And so what's interesting about your story is I have had a story that I like to tell in my product ownership course that is similar to that. Is that I had a client up in Syracuse, which did one of the most mature things they could have ever done. Now, this is obviously a response to a negative behavior pattern in their system, but they did something really mature. They had so much technical debt. They had, I think, 300 plus SaaS customers, and they were just having so many issues throughout the application that they finally got to a point. I thought this was very mature at the time, and it still is that they said, they sent out a correspondence to all 300 plus of their clients and said, guys, I know you're paying us monthly fee for our SaaS-based system, but you're going to get nothing for the next 3 months because we got to fix our house. And what was really, I think, brave about that was that they were willing to say to their customers and their clients, look, we all know that the system's borked. It's broken. It's not working effectively. You're paying us for quality software. We haven't done a good job of that. The next 90 days, 3 months, we're just going to fix the house so you guys have a better experience. And what was the win from that is that the amount of feedback they got was, yeah, duh, it's completely broken, but we appreciate you guys finally doing something about it. Now, I think there's a lesson in there, right? That we don't have to go to the extreme of turning off the faucet for 3 months on our clients, but the opportunity is how can we begin taking those bugs, paying down our technical debt as a discipline with our sprints so that we don't end up with those massive issues at the very end. So I think that's really what the question is kind of pointed to, is should we wait till the end to fix everything and then it's all broken and messed up? Probably not. Well, I don't need to say that. It's not Agile, it's BS. So find ways to interject and add in those bugs as you create direct functional value and fixing the house at the same time. I think that's really kind of the discipline that Agile really espouses here. What say you, Bob?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there, Peter. And I think that what I try to help clients with is understanding how much time they're actually spending fixing bugs. So let's take the bug fix sprint out of it, period. It's how bad is our software creation in general. And if I ask my average client, I go into their managers and leaders and I say, how much time do your team spend bug fixing? They'll probably tell me 5%.
Yeah.
And then if I go to the managers of those teams and I say specifically to the managers, how much time does your team spend fixing bugs? They might say 10 or 15%. And then I go to the developers and I say, how much time do you spend on the bugs? They say 25%. And then when we measure it, it's 40 or 50%. And so I actually don't like putting bugs in the backlog anymore. I actually like having a separate backlog so I can kind of track how much time I'm adding value and how much time I'm wasting fixing bugs. So I actually can call that number out and show people how horrific it is. Because if we're spending more than a few percent of our time fixing bugs, we're doing something inherently wrong really early in the system. And most of what we're doing wrong, as you and I both know from our clients, is you're trying to go too damn fast, right? They're just trying to go too fast. They're cutting corners, creating lousy quality. I always tell people, doing it right the first time is going to be faster. It's going to be faster in the end, because if you do it crappy and then you have to fix it, it's going to take longer. So quality builds speed. And I think we really need to pay attention to that. And it's a personal hot button for me, because I think a lot of times people don't even know how to build software in sprints. I think I've told this story to you before, but I don't recall. But my son went to Northwestern, and before he went there, I went to the dean of the school. I said, "Hey, if he doesn't hear about Agile and test-driven development, all these things in his 4 years here, you've done him and his classmates a disservice."
Oof.
And they don't actually teach it yet. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. We're churning out all of these computer science graduates, and unless they're at a major top school like maybe a Stanford or a Carnegie Mellon or an MIT or something, they're not getting the training in how to do development in sprints. And so if you don't know how to do it, you're going to end up with crappy stuff, and you're going to have bug fix sprints. So let's go back to the source of the problem and get some training in how do we actually create value and quality within sprints so that we can move forward every sprint and be happy with what we've got. Otherwise, I think we're in a world where people just get used to it.
So
it's like crazy, right?
Absolutely. Everything that you're saying is like deja vu from my last certified Scrum product owner course that I did this last week, because someone asked the question just like that. And here's the question that followed up from almost exactly what you said here is, whose responsibility is it to highlight that? Is it the product owners? Is it the Scrum masters? Is it the team's job? So you tell the audience here, Bob, who's responsible for bringing up that potentially pretty terse and maybe tough conversation with management that, who's supposed to help us manage these bugs, and how do we ensure that they get into their sprints? Who would you say is the answer to that?
Well, I would say everybody scream it at the top of your lungs.
For sure.
If we suck, we suck.
That
we should say something about it, right? I mean, I guess if I was going to go down the Scrum pathway, I would say to people, is it an impediment to your success? Yes. So who handles impediments? That would be the Scrum master. But that's a pretty weak argument. I think if you're in trouble and your team is not performing well, then the whole team should be screaming, hey, we are doing poorly, but it's not our fault. We don't know better. Help us know better. Help us know how to do this. So I think everybody should be screaming it. But it's funny though. I mean, people are so afraid for their jobs and things, and they're afraid to use the word. And I've got one of these that they're afraid to say,
no. Those are our favorite buttons for everyone out there. In all of our Agile for All retreats, we're always smashing on these no buttons.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because people just are afraid to say that word. They're afraid of the negative impact of it. And I'd be more afraid of the negative impact of my work sucks. But that's just me.
Man, what's rising up in my gut, Bob, is that you and I should probably, not probably, but I think we should try doing a longer form kind of chat, maybe, like a 30, 45, because you brought up some really nuanced things here, like education. I think you and I could probably talk for a good solid 30 minutes about why education needs to get up to par or get up to speed with the newest frameworks, the newest ways of developing software. And it is fascinating. We're 2 decades in now to Agile, and yet the universities are still not teaching this. They're still teaching basic traditional coding methodologies and coding frameworks that are frankly outdated by the time these kids graduate from school. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I think we might want to go on into maybe as an experiment, some long form stuff around the society in Agile or education in Agile and these types of things. So I wonder if that might be valuable to our listeners out there. But just a small nugget there, guys. I think we're pretty much on the same page here that bug sprints are BS. What you really want to do is you want to find opportunities to inject those bugs into the sprints and start paying down. I think the best way to say it, paying down that debt over time, because we know that as debt grows, the costs of paying that off grow exponentially as well. But you know what, guys, we are just two Agile coaches in the trenches. And so we are just two men with opinions. So if you have any ideas, if you have comments or suggestions or better ways of dealing with bugs, let us know. You can always leave a comment below, or you can join us in agileforall.com in our forums or in the feed and post your questions there. We hope to see you guys there. Thanks so much for joining us in another episode of Real Agile or BS, and we'll see you guys on the next one.